Good morning, I'm Dilip Thakore, editor of Education World.
Good morning, I'm Summiya Yasmeen, managing editor.
The August issue of Education World, the Independence Day issue, carries some very interesting stories. Our cover story is on the Barefoot College, Tilonia. Though this is a globally known institution and a community college, it's not so well known in India itself.
Yes, and the extraordinary work they've done in especially rural education, healthcare, sanitation, and environment conservation are exceptional. We'll tell you more about this
As we go on,
extraordinary
yes.
college later on as we go on. But
Which is now celebrating its 50th year of existence.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
Yeah. So before we do that, tell you more about our cover story, let's take you through what we've got in store for in our August issue. So as usual, two hard-hitting, insightful editorials. The first one is on Independence Day, why India's 75th Independence Day should be a time for self-reflection and introspection. Perhaps, never before in our 75 years has the nation been so divided along religious, caste, lines. So we ask our citizens and the establishment to self-reflect and introspect.
Yes, and the second editorial is on the lessons that India can learn from the crisis in Sri Lanka, which only a few decades ago, a few years ago, was way ahead of India on all human development indices, and now it's on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yes. And in our education news section, again, news from around the country. In Delhi, we've written about how there's a tussle between the Aam Aadmi Party and the central government, and the BJP, the Aam Aadmi Party and Mr. Manish Sisodia being accused of some scams in the construction of new classrooms.
Yes.
And we talk about that. In Maharashtra, we've again got a very interesting education news on Marathi medium
Schools.
private aided schools and how their teachers are not being given their dues.
Then there are education news reports from Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, where they were celebrating 7 of their students topping the ISC board exam. And then we look at that and say, actually, given the population of Uttar Pradesh, that perhaps may not be such a great achievement.
Yes, and of course in West Bengal, the TED scandal and the arrest of Mr. Partha Chatterjee and his aide Arpita, and the unearthing of huge amounts of crores of rupees in cash from their flats, and how this is entirely connected with the teacher eligibility test scandal, where
And teacher recruitment for government schools in West Bengal.
Yeah.
It's a scandalous story.
Education notes and education briefs, again, news from around the country on what other states are doing, for instance, Assam, Meghalaya, etc.
Yeah, it's an education news roundup from around the country. It's well worth reading.
Yeah. And in our institution profile, we spotlight this time Suchitra Academy, Hyderabad, an exceptional school which provides all-round education
And especially
sports
education.
Yes.
And PV Sindhu
Trained at the Suchitra Badminton Academy, which is sited on the same campus as the school. And in our foreign institution profile section, we have profiled University of Alberta, Canada.
expert comment column, we've got for the first time Sanjaya Badu, the well-known author, columnist, and former advisor to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in the UPA government, writing about how we need somewhat related to editorial to make Independence Day a day of introspection and self-reflection.
Yes, and how preserving its unity and diversity and pluralism are some of the biggest challenges facing India in its 75th year of independence.
And in our cover story, as I said, it's on Barefoot College, Tilonia, which is India's pioneer community college. And it's done a remarkable job in 50 years. They're celebrating 50 years now. And a remarkable job in totally transforming several districts in Rajasthan. the desert state of Rajasthan, and greening it, and creating local employment and training a lot of people to become solar engineers, rainwater harvesting, and night schools. And Barefoot College, unfortunately, though it's quite well known abroad, is not at all well known in India. In fact, most people have a blank stare when you tell them that our cover story is on Barefoot College. But it's a very, very important
Yes.
initiative, and it's a remarkable story. But the backstory of this is it's a remarkable story of rural development and regeneration. But the backstory is, why is rural India, in fact, so backward and
Underdeveloped.
compared to urban India? And behind that is a story of great, open, uninterrupted, and continuous injustice by urban India towards
Yes.
rural India.
Yes.
I think everyone needs to read this story to understand really why
There is
India's
such a
two
deep
countries, really, urban India and rural Bharat, and that divide has to be bridged if India is ever to become a really truly well developed country.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, uh, Barefoot College was founded by Bunker Roy, and there's also his life story and extraordinary story how a St. Stephen's College graduate went to Rajasthan to dig wells, and from there started Barefoot College, and how over the past 50 years this he has transformed and developed Barefoot College, like Dilip said earlier, into one of the most remarkable stories of rural education and development.
And we also, it's a slightly controversial story because we also reported a schism in Barefoot College, and with former chief executive
Megan Fallon.
breaking away and starting Barefoot College International, and which is doing the same work but under a different company.
Yes.
So neither Bunker nor Meg Fallon are happy about us having reported that. But as journalists, we have to report
Yes, the
the
truth.
facts and the truth, and
Leave
our-
it to our readers to
to
decide
decide.
who's right and wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So we highly recommend you read this story, and we also very, very highly recommend that our K-12 schools establish some kind of collaborations and visits to Barefoot College so that students understand what's happening really in rural India. I think that's very important,
Yes, indeed.
Dilip, and I think Bunker would be more than happy to welcome the students from urban schools into Barefoot College.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, it's worth exploring for school managements. They don't like to be seen as a tourist site. Then
So-
in our people column, we have some very interesting people. An indefatigable champion of orphan children who's done wonderful work. That's Purna Chandra Rao in Hyderabad, running a school called the Nice School, which is a remarkable institution worth reading about.
Yes.
They're now completing their 20th anniversary.
Yes, and then we've also written up Sushma Patari, who's an exemplary school principal of a municipal school in Pune, and how she has helped transform the institution. Again, a very inspiring story. Of course, in our international news section, we've got coverage from the United States, China, Chile, and a story on how pandemic learning loss is going to turn into a very big setback for many school children across the world.
Yes, indeed, around the world. And unfortunately, there's not enough attention being paid to that in India. In fact, we are fudging that issue of the learning loss of children during the pandemic and
Yeah.
pretending that we can continue from where we left off.
Yes, and there's a story from Russia and there's a story from Saudi Arabia talking about the building of the new Neom
Of a
city
new university.
and of the Neom University, which is projected to be one of the world's most
Well equipped.
and path-breaking universities in terms of infrastructure and facilities. And in our special report section, we've highlighted a very important issue, the Common University Entrance Test, which has been introduced by UGC for admission into undergrad programs of all central universities. We've reported how QET has had a disastrous start.
Yes.
Yes, with technical glitches, students missing exams, reporting at exam centers. But beyond this disastrous start, we have discussed threadbare why QET needs a mid-course correction, especially given the challenges and the it poses
Yes.
to
Actually,
the
it
secondary
was.
school education system.
Yes.
Especially it's a negation of the class 12 board exams. We've had many experts comment how it's giving a big boost to the coaching culture.
Yes, coaching schools.
Yes, coaching
Yes, anyway,
schools.
this our take on this is that it was introduced too quickly, too much of a hurry,
Yes.
and now it's had some unforeseen consequences.
Yeah.
And it needs, as Summiya said, it needs a mid-course correction.
Correct. Our book review section this time.
Interesting books.
Yes, very interesting books. There's a review on the Arabs, a history, where Dilip talks about how though India is geographically closely located to the Arab world, we know so little about them
And their history.
and their turbulent history. So it's a book review we highly recommend you read. And in our next book review, we've profiled and we've reviewed the Booker Prize-winning
Novel,
novel.
Tombs of Sand.
Yes, and proudly it's in Indian, Gitanjali Shri.
It's
First in translation, Indian translation
Yes,
novel
indeed.
to have won the Booker Prize. We reviewed the book. Again, very interesting review. And our final postscript section.
Our most read section. We paid tribute to the late V. Krishnamurthy, in my opinion, the greatest public sector manager ever. And then we also talk about the cast iron corruption system in sub-registrar's offices in Karnataka. And then a major bank frauds boom going on inside the banking sector, particularly public sector banks. So that's all we have in this issue of Education World. As you might have gathered from what we've been saying, very interesting issue, very
Read
thought-provoking.
and get involved.
Very thought-provoking, and we want to increase our readership because we want all of you to get involved in our mission to make education the number one item on the national agenda.
Before we go, let's tell you what we have in Parents World. The cover story in Parents World is again very timely. It's on how parents can inspire children with the idea of India. On its 75th Independence Day, we think parents have a special role to play to inspire children with the idea of India. What the idea of India as how our freedom fighters led by Mahatma Gandhi envisioned it, a secular, democratic, egalitarian India which celebrates its unity in diversity.
So this is the thing all parents should discuss across the dinner table with their children.
Thank you.
Thank you.